Okay, so you want to own a trucking company. You see trucks on the highway constantly. 18-wheelers hauling cargo across the country, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Logistics is the backbone of every product that reaches every customer. Amazon's entire business depends on trucking. Every retailer depends on trucking. Every manufacturer depends on trucking. You look at the numbers. The trucking industry generates $875 billion annually in the United States alone. There are over 3.5 million professional truck drivers. The trucking shortage has been ongoing for years. Companies are desperate for capacity. Rates are rising. Demand is endless. You see trucking companies as a natural business. Buy a truck, find a driver, get contracts, and watch revenue flow in. The truck works 24/7. The driver gets paid per mile. You collect the difference. It sounds almost too simple. It sounds like owning a self-driving ATM that just needs someone to steer it occasionally. It sounds like owning a trucking company in 1995 when logistics was booming and anyone with capital and a customer was making money. That is exactly the comparison people are making right now. The trucking industry is absolutely massive. The American Trucking Association reports that trucks move over 70% of all domestic freight tonnage. FedEx and UPS have massive trucking fleets. Amazon started its own trucking operation because they need that much capacity. Autonomous vehicle companies are racing to create self-driving trucks, claiming they'll revolutionize the industry in 5 to 10 years. Freight rates have been volatile but average around $2 to $2.50 per mile for truckload moves. A single truck can do 120,000 to 150,000 miles per year. The math seems obvious. 120,000 miles at $2.25 per mile is $270,000 in annual revenue. The truck seems like it should be printing money. But here's what is actually happening on the ground, inside trucking operations when the cameras are off and the actual profit and loss statements are open. The reality of owning a trucking company is completely different from what the industry projections suggest. Some trucking companies are genuinely making money. Many more are barely surviving. And a significant number are quietly losing it. The gap between the three groups comes down to a handful of things that almost no one explains before you finance your first truck. By the end of this, you will know exactly where the money comes from, where it disappears to, what the hidden costs really are, and what separates the trucking operations that thrive from the ones where owners are working impossible hours just to service debt. What a trucking business actually sells. The illusion of simplicity. People assume that owning a trucking company means you're selling transportation. You are. But that's not where the profit comes from. If you're selling transportation at standard trucking rates, the margins are thin and getting thinner. A truckload move that generates $2,500 in revenues seems substantial, until you subtract the costs. What a trucking company actually sells is reliability, consistency, and speed. The ability to move cargo from point A to point B on a schedule. The assurance that the cargo will arrive undamaged. The insurance that if something goes wrong, the trucking company covers it. This reliability has value. But the value is captured by the shipper, not by the trucking company. The trucking business is fundamentally different from owning a truck. A truck owner with 1 or 2 vehicles is in survival mode, hustling for freight, fighting for rates, managing driver drama. A trucking company with hundreds of trucks has leverage. They can negotiate better rates because they can move volume. They can optimize routes. They can spread their fixed costs across more trucks. They have systems. A single truck owner has chaos. This is crucial. If you're thinking about owning one truck, you're thinking about a job, not a business. You're the driver or you're managing a driver. You're not collecting passive income. You're competing against every other single truck owner fighting for the same freight. The full upfront investment, what actually costs money. Everyone talks about the truck. Nobody talks about everything else that costs money before you haul a single load. The truck itself, $80,000 to $180,000. A new Class 8 tractor, which is the standard long-haul truck, costs $120,000 to $180,000. A used truck with 500,000 to 800,000 miles on it costs $50,000 to $90,000. Most owner-operators finance trucks because the upfront cost is prohibitive. A $120,000 truck financed at 8% over 7 years is $1,900 per month in payments. Over 7 years, you'll pay roughly $159,600 total, meaning you're paying $39,600 in interest alone. By year 7, the truck is worth $20,000 to $40,000 if the market hasn't crashed. Trailer, $25,000 to $50,000. You need a trailer to haul cargo. A dry van, which is the standard trailer, costs $25,000 to $40,000 new. A used trailer costs $15,000 to $25,000. If you finance it separately, that's another $300 to $600 per month in payments. Permits and licenses, $3,000 to $8,000 US. Number registration. Operating authority. Fuel tax permits. State permits. Safety inspections. Medical certification for drivers. Insurance documentation. Getting legal authority to operate a commercial trucking business involves dozens of regulatory approvals and costs. Insurance, $15,000 to $35,000 per year. This is the killer cost that most owner-operators underestimate. Commercial liability insurance for a trucking operation is expensive. Minimum coverage is $750,000 general liability. Cargo insurance to protect what you're hauling. Bobtail insurance for when you're driving without a load. Physical damage coverage for the truck. Workers' compensation if you hire employees. Most single truck operations are paying $1,500 to $3,000 per month in insurance. That's $18,000 to $36,000 per year for a business that might gross $270,000. Initial maintenance and repair reserve, $5,000 to $15,000. Commercial trucks break down constantly. Engine problems. Transmission problems. Suspension issues. Tire blowouts. A single engine rebuild can cost $8,000 to $15,000. Most owner-operators need cash reserves for unexpected repairs or they're dead in the water. Fuel system setup and tracking, $2,000 to $5,000. Fuel card systems. Electronic logging devices mandated by the federal government. GPS tracking. These are regulatory requirements and operational necessities. Working capital buffer, $10,000 to $30,000. Money to cover your own living expenses, truck payments, and fuel for the first 30 to 90 days while you're building a customer base and getting paid for completed loads. The real total investment. For a single truck owner-operator, the full upfront investment ranges from $150,000 to $350,000 depending on whether you're buying new or used trucks and what payment plans you negotiate. For someone starting a small trucking company with 3 to 5 trucks, you're looking at $600,000 to $1.5 million in total capital investment. Most owner-operators finance 70% to 80% of the truck and trailer cost. If you're financing $200,000 in equipment at 8% over 7 years, that's $2,850 per month in payments. That's $34,200 per year in debt service before you count a single operating expense. This is the number that determines whether you survive or fail. Where the money actually goes, the operating cost reality. Once you're on the road, the costs don't pause. They accelerate. And this is where the trucking business shows why 90% of owner-operators make less than $50,000 per year in actual income. Fuel, 30% to 40% of revenue, realistically 35% to 45% in most scenarios. This is the largest variable cost. A truck gets roughly 5.5 to 7 miles per gallon depending on conditions, maintenance, and driving style. At diesel prices of $3 to $3.50 per gallon, you're spending 45 cents to 65 cents per mile on fuel alone. A 1,000-mile load at $2.25 per mile generates $2,250 in revenue. Fuel costs are $450 to $650. That's 20% to 29% of revenue on fuel for that single load. But that's best case. Long waits, idling, inefficient routes, and fuel price spikes can push fuel costs to 40% to 50% of revenue for owner-operators. Maintenance and repairs, 8% to 15% of revenue. Commercial truck maintenance is expensive and mandatory. Oil changes cost $200 to $400. Tire replacement costs $1,500 to $3,000 for a full set. brake service, engine work, suspension repairs. A truck that runs 120,000 miles per year is running constantly. Industry estimates suggest 10 cents to 18 cents per mile in maintenance and repairs. That's $12,000 to $21,600 per year for 120,000 miles. On revenue of $270,000, that's 4.5% to 8% of revenue. Insurance: 5% to 8% of revenue on $270,000 in annual revenue. Insurance of $1,500 to $3,000 per month is $18,000 to $36,000 per year. That's 6.6% to 13% of revenue. Tolls: 2% to 5% of revenue if you're running the northeastern highways or major interstates. Tolls add up. Some owner-operators pay $500 to $1,000 per month in tolls. On $270,000 revenue, that's 2% to 4%. Truck payments: 8% to 15% of revenue. The debt service on a $120,000 truck at 8% over 7 years is $1,900 per month, or $22,800 per year. On $270,000 revenue, that's 8.4%. Trailer payments: 2% to 5% of revenue, $400 to $600 per month depending on financing terms. Permits and licensing: 1% to 2% of revenue, roughly $100 to $300 per month in recurring permit costs and renewals. Electronic logging device and telematics: $150 to $300 per month, mandatory electronic logging. GPS tracking. Compliance systems. Meals and living expenses while driving: 3% to 7% of revenue. Truck stops, hotels, food. A driver living in the truck needs to eat. Extended trips require hotel stays. $50 to $150 per day in living expenses. Over 250 working days per year, that's $12,500 to $37,500 in out-of-pocket expenses. On $270,000 revenue, that's 4.6% to 13.9%. The monthly revenue and cost reality for a single truck owner-operator: average monthly revenue, $22,500, roughly 10,000 miles per month at $2.25 per mile. Text fuel: 35% of revenue, $7,875. Maintenance/repairs: 7%, $1,575. Insurance: 7%, $1,575. Tolls: 3%, $675. Truck payment: $1,900. Trailer payment: $500. Permits/licensing: $150. ELD/telematics: $200. Living expenses: 5%, $1,125. Total operating costs: $15,575. Gross operating profit: $6,925. Less fuel reserve for bad months: $500. Less repair buffer: $400. Net available for owner income: $6,025 per month, $72,300 per year. This looks okay. But here's what the owner-operator actually experiences. What owner-operators don't account for: empty miles. Every load move has a return trip. A truck picks up cargo in Atlanta, drives to Los Angeles, delivers. Now the truck is in Los Angeles with no cargo. The truck must return to Atlanta to pick up the next load. Those return miles generate zero revenue but burn fuel and wear on the equipment. For every profitable load mile, there might be 0.4 to 0.6 empty miles. That means on a 1,000-mile productive mile, you're driving 1,400 to 1,600 total miles. Your effective revenue per mile drops from $2.25 to $1.40 to $1.60 per mile when you account for empty miles. Suddenly, a profitable business looks very different. Detention and waiting time: you arrive at a shipper or receiver. They're not ready to load or unload. You wait 4 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours. You're not getting paid. Your truck is sitting still but costing money. Detention pay might offset this. Sometimes it doesn't. Owner-operators lose 10% to 20% of productive time waiting for shippers and receivers. Cargo rejection and damage: you arrive at a destination. The cargo is damaged. The receiver rejects it. You're now liable. You're also now without a load. Insurance might cover it. Might not. One major cargo damage claim can wipe out months of profit. Fuel price volatility. You locked in a load at $2.25 per mile, assuming fuel costs of $3.20 per gallon. Fuel spikes to $4 per gallon during the move. Your fuel costs jump from $450 to $560 on a 1,000-mile load. You've just given up 24% of your profit on that load. Fuel price hedging is beyond what most owner-operators can do. Seasonal fluctuations. Summer is peak shipping season. Winter is slower. A truck that averages 10,000 miles per month in summer might only average 6,000 miles per month in winter. Your fixed costs don't decrease in winter. Your truck payment is still $1,900. Your insurance is still due. But revenue drops 40% to 50%. You're now losing money. Shipper concentration. Many owner-operators build their business with one or two major shippers. If that shipper reduces volume or goes out of business, you've lost 50% to 80% of your revenue overnight. You're now in crisis mode. Driver issues. If you own multiple trucks and hire drivers, driver turnover is brutal. Training costs money. Productivity ramps slowly. Bad drivers cause accidents, damage cargo, and create liability. One driver mistake can cost thousands in insurance claims and lost customer relationships. Real owner-operator income that most don't discuss. The American Trucking Association reports that average owner-operator income is roughly $58,000 to $75,000 per year. That's gross revenue minus operating expenses. But it's not income. It's what's left after costs. And it's before personal income taxes, quarterly estimated taxes, and health insurance. The bottom 25% of owner-operators, miles per month, 7,000 to 8,000 revenue, $15,750 to $18,000 per month after all operating costs, $2,000 to $3,500 per month net annual income, $24,000 to $42,000. Most are considering exiting or selling their truck. They're working 60-plus hours per week. The middle 50% of owner-operators, miles per month, 9,000 to 12,000 revenue, $20,250 to $27,000 per month after all operating costs, $4,000 to $7,000 per month net annual income, $48,000 to $84,000. They're making reasonable money but working 50-plus hours per week. One major repair or accident destroys their annual profit. The top 25% of owner-operators, miles per month, 13,000 to 15,000 revenue, $29,250 to $33,750 per month after all operating costs, $8,000 to $12,000 per month net annual income, $96,000 to $144,000. They've optimized routes, secured better freight, and minimized empty miles. They're still working 50-plus hours per week. They've paid off debt and have lower monthly payments. The critical insight: the difference between making $35,000 and making $120,000 is primarily about freight optimization and utilization rates. The business model doesn't change. The execution does. Why location and freight logistics are literally everything. Two identical trucks. Same owner competency. One is based in Dallas near major distribution hubs with consistent freight. One is based in a rural area with sporadic freight opportunities. The Dallas truck runs 13,000 miles per month. The rural truck runs 7,000 miles per month. Same truck payments. Same insurance. Different revenue. Different profitability. This is where the owner-operator gets trapped. Good freight requires being in good locations. Moving to a major freight hub costs money and time. Some areas have more trucking demand than others. When you're starting out, you take whatever loads you can find. You're not in a position to cherry-pick freight or negotiate rates. You're fighting for margin on lower-paying loads. As you build relationships and reputation, you can access better freight. But that takes years. The hidden advantage of trucking companies with scale. This is where the economics get interesting. A trucking company with 20 trucks has advantages that a single truck owner-operator cannot achieve alone. They can negotiate better rates because they offer volume. They can aggregate freight to optimize routing. They can maintain driver relationships that reduce turnover. They can secure contracts with major shippers instead of competing on the spot market. A company with 20 trucks might operate at 8% to 12% net profit margins. A single truck owner-operator operates at 3% to 8% margins if they're lucky. The difference is leverage. The good scenario: when trucking works, you buy 2 used trucks for a total investment of $150,000 in equity. You finance $200,000 total. You hire 2 experienced drivers. You secure a contract with a logistics company that guarantees minimum loads and pricing. Your trucks average 11,000 miles per month each, generating $24,750 per month per truck, or $49,500 total monthly revenue. After all operating costs, each truck nets $6,500 per month. Combined, $13,000 per month. After debt service of $3,200 per month, you're netting $9,800 per month or $117,600 per year. You own a profitable business that generates genuine income. Within 5 to 6 years, you've paid off your debt. Annual cash flow jumps to $15,600 per month. You expand to 4 trucks. You're now running a legitimate trucking company. The bad scenario: the more common outcome, you buy a single truck for $120,000 financed at $1,900 per month. You're an owner-operator. You piece together freight from brokers, sometimes getting good rates, often getting squeezed. You average 9,000 miles per month, generating $20,250 in revenue. After operating costs of $14,500 per month, you net $5,750 per month or $69,000 per year. But you're also working 60 hours per week. You're exhausted. You're one major repair away from financial crisis. In winter, volume drops. You're now netting $3,000 per month. You're losing money monthly. Most owner-operators in this situation burn out within 3 to 5 years. The AI disruption nobody talks about. This is the elephant in the room. Autonomous vehicles are coming. Tesla is testing autonomous trucks. Waymo is testing autonomous trucks. Traditional trucking companies are preparing for a transition to autonomous operations. The timeline is uncertain. Could be 5 years. Could be 10 years. But the direction is clear. When autonomous trucks arrive at scale, the trucking economics change fundamentally. A truck that drives itself doesn't need a driver. A $60,000 annual driver expense disappears. Labor is currently 35% to 40% of trucking company operating costs. Remove that, and profit margins theoretically expand dramatically. But here's what actually happens. Freight rates collapse as the cost of trucking plummets. Competition increases. The value flows to shippers, not to trucking companies. An autonomous truck might be more profitable per mile than a human-driven truck. But rates will fall until margin returns to the industry average. For owner-operators specifically, autonomous trucks are an existential threat. If you're leveraging yourself on truck payments and driver labor costs, you're betting that the current economics persists for 10 to 15 years. If autonomous trucks arrive in 7 years and rates collapse 30% to 40%, you're bankrupt. Your truck payment is fixed. Your new operating environment is much lower margin. You've financed on the assumption of old economics in a new economy. Conclusion: the actual economics of trucking. Owning a trucking business is not passive income. It's operational management where you're focused on freight optimization, driver management, maintenance, and regulatory compliance. 1 truck is a job. 5 to 10 trucks is a small business. 20 trucks is a legitimate operation with real leverage. The money in trucking goes to 4 groups. First, trucking companies with scale and customer relationships that allow them to access better freight and negotiate better rates. Second, owner-operators who've optimized routes, minimized empty miles, and secured consistent freight. Third, drivers who are well compensated and stay with reliable operators. Fourth, the shippers who ultimately benefit from competitive rates. The separation between owner-operators who make $120,000 per year and those who make $45,000 per year comes down to freight optimization and utilization rates. Both are running the same equipment. Both have the same fixed costs. The difference is execution. But here's what almost nobody discusses openly. The trucking industry as it exists today is in a 5 to 15-year transition period. Autonomous vehicles will fundamentally reshape economics. If you're financing a truck today on 10-year terms, you're betting that human-driven trucking economics persist for those 10 years. You might be right. You might be catastrophically wrong. The owner-operators who will thrive in the next decade will be those who scale to multiple trucks before autonomous vehicles arrive and capture competitive advantages that persist through the transition. The owner-operator who buys a single truck today and expects to operate it for 10 years is taking a bet against an industry transition that may be inevitable.